Hello, Creative Eye Media digital photographers. Mr. Ballantyne here with the follow-up lesson to camera features. Last time you looked at how to focus and adjust the aperture and blur the background using your camera. This time we're going to look at ISO and shutter speed, two really important tools when adjusting the light on your photos. I'm going to start by showing you a diagram of the inside of a camera. So let's imagine that we are taking a picture of a guy or a girl here, a little stick man. Oh, God. So when the camera is taking a picture of this stick man, the light from the stick man passes through first off the lens, and you'll see that on the back of your phone, through the aperture, and remember that's the hole, a bit like the iris in your eye, the pupil, sorry. And then it goes through something called a shutter. And a shutter is, I'll show you in a minute, a diagram or a video how it works. It's basically how long the light is exposed to, right at the back here, a sensor. So the light travels all the way through from the picture through to the sensor at the back of the camera, and the shutter can be either very slow or very fast, depending on how much light you want to come in. And then ISO is all about how sensitive that sensor is to receiving light at the back. Let me show you a bit more what I mean about that. So first off, ISO. Basically, what ISO measures is how sensitive your camera is to letting in light. The lower the ISO number, around about 100 there, the less sensitive it is to light, while the higher, up to 1600 and above, the more sensitive it is. And basically, on a really sunny day, or in bright conditions, or on the beach, or if you were like in snow, you'd want a very low ISO. In dark conditions, you want a very high ISO. But as you can see over here, what happens is it changes the quality of the image. So here's a low ISO, but in a darkish situation, it makes the picture quite dark. Likewise here, too high an ISO is going to give a sort of overexposed sort of feel to it. And sometimes that can be quite a good thing. You might want to make that sort of effect in your photo. It's a way to sort of like allow you to change the sort of creative feel of it. Shutter speed, and if I show you this video here, I've taken a lens off a camera. I hope this is going to work. Yeah. So when you press the button to take a photo, this is what's happening at very slow motion inside a camera. It opens up, lets a bit of light into the sensor, and then the shutter closes again. Now that was like really slow motion. It does it in the absolute blink of an eye, like a thousandth of a second. That's how much shutter speed is measured. But it opens up really quickly, and it lets that light in, just like in the diagram that I showed you a couple of slides earlier. And we can see with this picture here, this has got a slow shutter speed, and it gives this nice effect of the train being blurred. You might have seen photos of like stars blurred or traffic lights blurred. It gives and water, like I had in that first photo, gives a really nice effect. But sometimes you want a really fast shutter speed to freeze actions. This is quite a cool picture of some paint exploding, and because it's a fast shutter speed, it really gets that. You can capture it. You might also use it in sports photography, or when taking pictures of cars going really fast. You'd need a fast shutter speed to freeze the action. Okay, and you can see I've just done this diagram. So a really slow shutter speed, it's measured in seconds, about half a second, gives a blurred effect, whereas a faster shutter speed from 1/500th of a second upwards gives a more sharp image. So if you can write that down in your book, that would be great. And also maybe rewind, look at the ISO and write the definition of what ISO is before we move on to the next slide. Okay, so what I'd like you to do here is, if you're an Android user, download Open Camera. It's a free app. It allows you to use the manual settings on your camera. If you're an Apple iPhone user, download an app called Yamera, which again allows you to have manual controls over your camera. For some Android phones, like Huawei, like some Samsungs, you might not need to download this. You might be able to find what are called Pro settings in your camera, which will allow you to adjust the ISO and the shutter speed. So if you can see Pro settings in your camera already, you don't need to download Open Camera. But if you can't see Pro settings, then do download Open Camera for Android and Yamera for iPhone. Okay, once you've done that, come back to the video. Okay, so I have got an Android. I don't have an iPhone, but this is what I think Yamera looks like on the iPhone. So when I explain how to use Open Camera on an Android, you're doing the similar sort of thing, but you're doing it within Yamera. And the manual camera controls are two sliders at the bottom of the viewfinder. You should be able to get up ISO and shutter speed there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open up Open Camera, and here it is, and my pile of bricks and a food mixer that I'm going to use to demonstrate shutter speed and ISO. So you can see in yellow on the viewfinder, it automatically is adjusting the ISO from 130 down to 50 and the shutter speed 1/50th of a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to manually change that. So if you look at the plus minus square at the top, if I press that, I can see it's in auto mode, and I can press on that M and that puts it into manual mode, or back into auto mode. So let's go into manual, and I've got two sliders there. The first one says ISO, and so if I slide that and increase the ISO, you can see like a high ISO is normally for a dark situation, so it makes it really, really overexposed. Slide it back, and you can see for shutter speed, for a faster shutter speed, it's making the picture darker. For a slower shutter speed, it's making the picture a little bit overexposed. So I want to get a balance of the two, but in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to experiment and show the shutter speed using this KitchenAid. So, okay. So as my food mixer is going to go off like that, and I want to get two shots, one of it blurred and one of it quite sharp. Okay, so to do a blurred one, I go back into the plus minus and manual, and I'm going to change the shutter speed so that it's quite slow, around about 1/10 of a second. Let's try that to 1/15th, and I'm going to have to adjust the ISO the other way to compensate for that slow shutter speed. So it's always making that trade-off in terms of ISO and shutter speed. So if I start it up, and I'm going to have to hold it really still, the camera. Okay, and then take the picture. Bosh. Let's have a look at that. And you can see I've got quite a nice sort of balloon effect there from the slow shutter speed. So it's let a lot of light into the camera. Let's try it again, but this time with a fast shutter speed. Okay, so back into the plus minus, make sure it's on M. I want to change the shutter speed so it's pretty fast. Let's go to 1/1000th of a second, and that means I'm going to have to adjust the ISO the other way. Actually, let's just make it really, really fast and go for 1/2000th of a second, and just adjust the ISO the other way. Okay, focus and start it up. Take the picture. Now you can see the difference in the light between the two. It's absolutely caught that whisk really accurately and precisely, so the shutter speed was right, but it's sort of quite a dark background. Compare it to that one there, the background's a bit lighter, and with the slow shutter speed it's got that sort of whisk type bit to it. So you can experiment yourself. You don't need a whisk, you can run a marble or toy car, or even get someone jumping up and down. Remember, the key thing to use in this is toggling between auto and manual. That's what's going to let you adjust those settings, and you're just going to have to play around with it and just get a little balance and see what works the best for your subject. Okay, so here is your task, 2 tasks today. First off, task 1 is adjusting the ISO settings. So I want you to find a small set of objects. It could be pens, could be dice, marbles work quite nicely, some balls, toy cars, batteries, all good for this. Arrange them ready for a photo, and then using the ISO settings on the camera, take a range of different photos, starting at the lowest setting, the highest setting, and then some in between. And what you can do is you can also change where you have your objects. So put them in a dark setting, put them in a light setting, and adjust the ISO accordingly. And see what you notice about the difference in quality between the photos. And use on the right-hand side here, this as a prompt for the different how to write up your images. You can either save them and write them up in a PowerPoint, or you can write them up in your book as well and just save them onto your phone. Okay, so that's task 1. Feel free to pause that. Task 2 is doing a similar sort of task, but this time with a shutter speed. So again, find the shutter speed setting within Open Camera or in Yamera, and use your still life objects to play with slow shutter speed and fast shutter speed. So you can roll the dice, like I do with the food mixer, or you can get someone to do it yourself. You can take a picture of someone else running on the spot, jumping up and down, but have a go at changing the shutter speeds. You'll need to adjust the ISO as well to see if you can get a blurred effect like this one here, and a really sharp effect like that one there. And again, write up on what you've done and how you've managed to achieve that effect. I'd love to see some of your finished work, so do make sure that you can put up the class charts after, or get it to me somehow. That would be great to see. Just going to finish with this chart. So this covers the 3 things that we've looked at: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. And this is a really, really nice handy chart to have. You can see here that a really small aperture is good for landscape photos, and a wide aperture blurs that background, gives that effect there. 1/1000th of a second fast shutter speed for action, slow shutter speed over here if you want to blur it. And again here for ISO, the lower the ISO, the sharper the picture will be. But as you increase the ISO for darker situations, it will allow more light in, be more sensitive, but it will perhaps make the picture a little bit more grainy, and that's the sort of thing I want you to see when you do your tasks today. Okay, good luck, and get creative with that camera.